Hi, coaches. Welcome again to another very special interview. This one is with our very own Bart Loos. Is that how I pronounce your name?
Yeah, in Dutch we pronounce it Loos, but
Loos.
it's
Okay.
difficult for an English native speaker, I guess.
No.
So Loos is okay. Has a
Loos.
different connotation in English, but
Okay.
I will handle that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for putting up with my terrible pronunciation.
Mm.
Um, So really, this is just like another series of interviews that I wanted to do with people who either have directly impacted me in my coaching and how I go about that and how I go about creating clients, or someone who's obviously very in the case of Bart, someone who's obviously very skilled, has helped a lot of coaches develop their practice and has an understanding in the three principles as well. So I mean, I guess just to start off with Bart, could you give for people who don't know anything about you just a bit of background, kind of what was your coaching background? How did you get into the three principles? What you do now? I think would be a good place to start.
Well, let me first start with thanking you for creating the opportunity for us to have this conversation. And I'm a bit humbled by who you see, who else you have been interviewing. Because I'm not that well-known name in the coaching community, especially not in outside of Belgium, where I live, where I'm from. So how did my journey go about? I guess about 20 years ago, I was trained to be a professional musician, but somehow that didn't work out like I hoped it would be. After like two, 3 years on jazz, professional jazz school, I figured out that I really didn't have the rhythm, the feel for music in order to be a really great professional musician. But somehow I still turn out in working in the business environment, in the music environment for like 15 years. So I traveled the world supporting musicians and bands for like the next 15 years of my career, and that was an actually in retrospect was an awesome experience in the sense that I did basically I started out with not knowing what I was doing, but I ended up working with the best, the very best, the best people in that kind of industry. Not with even without me having the intention to be there or to get there. So that in itself is it's like a sort of a case for me where someone can just follow along what they do, live their life, and become great professionally and become very successful in a sort of business, and that relates for me as well to the coaching business. Now, somewhere the end of the 90s, my back then girlfriend walked out of me and she left me for another guy, and that was like a trigger point for me to sort of wake up. You know, I've been traveling around the world. I guess I wasn't really there for her, so her choice, in retrospect, makes sense for her life, but it wasn't for me because I was like shocked for like a couple of months, and I had a hard time back then to get over the fact that she walked out of me. Um, you know, and then you go on this like this. I went on this self development track for quite a while. I did meditation, EFT. I trained in NLP. Became a master practitioner. I did meditation courses with Deepak Chopra and all those different kinds of things. Basically, I trained with pretty much the best of the best, and sort of in like 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I rolled into helping other people. It's basically the same track that most coaches do, in my experience. They um, people people rarely come out of college or university wanting to be a coach, um, or wanting to be a professional coach helping other people. So like so many other coaches, I run into myself, and I found help through going into self-development, getting into the self-development world, getting to know NLP and coaching and stuff like that. So I started to help out other people with a change tool that worked really well for me and helped my clients really well. It was called the three-dimensional mind, and I trained lots of other people in the same methodology as well, and that was fun for a while. The thing is that one day, 7, 8 years ago, I'm not sure, I got this email or in this group where Jamie Smart as well was being in, and he talked about the three principles and stuff like that. And I looked it up, and I saw this website, that Sid Bank's website. I guess that it was, and it still looked like this website from like 2-3 decades ago. So the the quality of the website, how it looked. So it said, what is Jamie into? It doesn't make sense, because just on the look of the website, it was actually. But eventually, a few years later, I just rolled into it. It really made sense, and I never looked back. In the meantime, I was coaching other coaches as part of the business. I was also doing belief change work with lots of other people. But in the coaching other coaches, you couldn't call it a niche, but the main thing was always working on people's mindsets rather than around people's strategies or sales skills or marketing skills. The thing is, people come in with that question: how can I get more clients? How can I market myself better? How can I sell my service in a greater way? But eventually, the only question came down to what I back then called mindset, or their attitudes around and getting to know the three principles and seeing what it did for me. The whole business shifted much more to instead of a one-on-one coaching conversation with people, towards facilitating groups and more teaching. Now these days I'm like more teaching than really coaching, if you can say that. So that's a bit of what I do. And on a very short, last August, not last August, but August 2014, the doctors told me I had leukemia, so I went through chemo and stem cell transplant, and I'm basically recovering from that. And it halted the business because I was in hospital for like 4 or 5 months, and recovering from that. So at the moment, I'm not really in business, but I'm like doing side things and working with groups and having inspiring talks, what we call. So that's a bit of the whole thing where I'm at right now.
Wow, yeah, no, that's pretty powerful, and thank you for sharing your time with us today. Um, and I, and you know, and I mean, there's lots. We talked last week about a number of things that I wanted to get onto, but the first question that's popping up into my head is, you know, as someone who was new into coaching a few years ago, and especially talking to three principles coaches, I kind of heard a lot. Well, it's all just grounding. So when I was looking for the how-tos and well, I don't know how to do this. Well, just give me some basic steps. And I was told it's all a grounding issue. What I've discovered over the years is how true that is, but that word has changed for me.
Hmm.
It's you know it's what it was pointing to. So I'd just love to get your thoughts on what does that mean to you? So if you hear someone say to be a better coach, it's just about grounding. What does that mean to you? Or do you? Because I think you agree with that statement.
Yeah, I agree with that statement in the sense that, well, the word grounding is used in three principles community very much, and maybe sometimes too much. Well, it's just your grounding, it's just your grounding. Of course, there is my business mentor years ago said always said, well, mindset is like 90% of the business, and there's 10% of knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what kind of strategies you implement, what kind of structures you set up for your business. And that on one level. So it's a mixture of those things. What I've found is that people come in with a how-to question, how to get more clients, how to market themselves better. But in my experience, it's often the wrong question at the wrong time for people. But I want to back up a bit because everything I'm gonna say is like my experience. It's what works for me, and I think that's the main thing in the coaching world. Beginning coaches are looking outside of them. They see a successful coach and they want to copy that. They want to say, oh, this guy is making six figures, or this guy is making five figures, or seven figures, or whatever. I want to do that as well. But rarely, in my experience, they slow down enough to realize what they want for themselves. And when you come down to grounding, it's part of that, knowing what you really want to get out of life. Because I've talked to so many coaches who wanted to be a coach because it makes sense. It gave them the freedom, it could give them the financial, the freedom to do and organize their own life, so not to have to work for someone else. Or it can give them the financial freedom and doing what they think they love to do, helping other people. Um, so on that level, it makes sense. But some of those coaches that I talked to, they're like born artists. For instance, they shouldn't be a coach. They should be that cultivate that artist in themselves. I've had coaches walk in my door, walking out as a non-coach. They walked in with, I want to make six figures or five figures, whatever their goal was. And this is the funny thing to see. Okay, now to get from point A to point B as a coach, you can break that down in steps. So you got to do this, this, and this, and it makes sense. And if you follow that, chances are great that it's gonna get you the result that you want to do. And they go, oh yeah, that makes sense, and they start, and then they run into themselves. And when they run, because almost everyone runs into themselves.
Could you just say a bit more about what that means, running into
Yeah,
yourself?
it's like marketing and selling and getting clients, creating clients, manifesting clients, whatever you want to call it. It's not that hard if you sit down. You do your research on Google. It takes half an hour to know the steps what people are doing to get clients. And what happens? People start to overthink that, make it difficult. Oh, I cannot do that. I tried networking, it doesn't work for me. Or I tried going out on LinkedIn and that doesn't work, or do Facebook marketing or whatever they copy. Um, but seldom they go out and test out what works for them themselves. And getting back to where they run into, yeah, it works somehow for them, but not for me. Or I tried it once and didn't get the results that I wanted. So the expectations were like, if I do it this way, it's gonna get me 20 people in the room, or it's gonna get me a client that pays me 5K. But it's rarely that straightforward. When it works, it's great, but when it doesn't work in the first place, people they get like in a lower mood about all this marketing and design things. So and it's going back to grounding. It's not trying different things, but not letting you sidetrack by things that do not seem to work the first time. Because there are many variables why someone buys from you or someone doesn't buy from you. And one of those variables is really the connection people have with each other. That's one of those variables that's often not talked about. And it's about marketing and sales, and they're looking like in the wrong direction. But when people run into their own stuff, you can take that their fear or their uncertainties that often show up. You can have a conversation about that. I used to start.
I was going to say, is a different way of saying that is that they're running into their own misunderstandings.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what I found for me is that I guess the way I would say it is almost there's nowhere to hide.
Mm-hmm.
So when I worked in a corporate job, sorry my old bosses, sorry if anyone's watching this, hopefully they're not, but you know, I wasn't working all the time. I was distracted. I could have off days. I could some days come back from work and I've done about an hour's work really in the full day. But I found with coaching, one, because it was me, right? There's no hierarchy. There's nowhere else to pick up the slack. It's just me. And two, because I'm the product in a way, the coaching is coming from me. There is absolutely nowhere to hide. So if I've got some fears about something or not doing something, it just massively shines a spotlight onto it compared to when I was working in a job working for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the difficult things that people underestimate, I think, when they have worked like 20 years in a team or in a work environment working for someone else. It's like their first experience of running their own business. But most coaches start out with, I just want to coach. I do not want to run my own business. So I make also the differentiation between rather about getting people clear about what they really want. Do you really want to have your own business and be responsible for everything that comes with that? And coaching is one part, and being a great coach is one part. And selling and being able to make sure that people buy your services and become profitable is another part of that. Yeah? And great coaching, and it's a dual thing because people shift in how they see the world, and the simpler, the easier, the more grounded, the more at ease you are, and the easier or the simpler the business part gets. The thing is that people do not start out as great coaches; they become great coaches. But you have to coach in order to become a great coach.
So could can we just rewind a second
Yeah,
and, and,
go ahead.
and, and go back, because you touched on a really important point, which was people have to decide what it is that they want. And I know last week when we had our kind of failed attempt at recording this interview, what you talked about different options, and that was really good, because I think it was, you made clear in that conversation that there are different paths depending on what it is that you want. So before we go down the road of, okay, now you've decided to become a coach, this is what you do, perhaps you could talk a little bit about, well, what are the options? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone, and let's be honest, you're someone who's been impacted. Most people, some people are coaches who then transfer, but I find most people probably in this group, and well, that's really the audience, are people that have got impacted by the three principles, and they
Mm-hmm.
now want to share that with other
Yeah.
people.
Basically, it's the same. Well, it doesn't really matter if it's the three principles that impacted you that you want to share. It's you see that people get impacted by NLP and they want to share NLP, or they want to, right, or they want to become an NLP trainer and run their own NLP business, or whatever coaching format they use. They've been helped through. They want to help other people. And that sort of makes sense because you see what other people are doing. I think that's a starting point. You see other people doing something that was outside of your view for so long, because you have been working in a business or another work environment, and now you see someone who is doing their own thing, creating this great stuff, helping other people, blah blah blah, and you say, oh, I want to do that as well. But sometimes it's like this shiny object distraction thing for you personally. I've seen that so many times over. And then it becomes difficult because the the starting place is like this whole becoming a coach and becoming like a professional coach and running your own business has been a shining object thing for people. That's so I've seen many people like that, and rather than helping them to become professional and make X figures or whatever, or becoming successful with their business, I love to get them back to themselves, and the 3P format is a great way to help you do that as a coach. Then, as a coach, if you're clear about coaching, what you want to do in the world, and like instead starting from a 3P view, you can do that in many different forms. There are many different forms. It doesn't have to be one-on-one. It doesn't have to be in a like in I'm a professional coach, and I'm gonna make sure that my professional business is working for me, so I can be able to help other people and make a difference for other people. You can be a coach while working for an organization or for another coaching team. Or you can partner up with other coaches. So there are many different structures where you can um, like uh, create an income while coaching, while doing what you love. It doesn't have to be like this professional coaching. I want to have, want to make 6 figures or 7 figures. It's interesting because it's great that some coaches are like making 6, 7 figures, but for like 80, 90% of the coaches, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, it really doesn't make sense to pursue that. And it's like this distraction of where they want to have to go in life. It took me personally a while to get the idea that I'm a far better teacher, facilitator than I'm a coach. And that's about what I'm now doing rather than coaching per se, if that makes sense.
Could you just describe the difference between a teacher and a coach in your view?
Well, a teacher is like it's interesting. Let's start from the three principles format. It's fluent. It's like for me, I'm going in and out of the. It's a mixture of mentoring, coaching, teaching, facilitating. So it's not like if someone else would look into what I do, and they're like a coach and they're focused on coaching is this way. This is how you coach. They probably would cringe up, right? Uh, but what I'm doing is great, and I see what kind of impact it has on people. So I'm not limiting myself to one format or the other, but I'm more fluent. If you would divide, it would go more in the direction of teaching, facilitating. And the difference for me is like it's like it both pulls out resources from people, but the format in which way you do it is different. When you're like facilitating a group, it's like there's a bit of content involved sometimes. You know, we had this inspiring parenting group we did early in the summer, me and my partner, and it was like a bit of understanding how our mind works, how the inside out system works. So it's you know the three principles conversations are not really coaching conversations. Are um, for me more facilitating and teaching conversation. Does that make sense?
My understanding is, and I feel that, and it might, I'd be interested to hear your view that the
Mm-hmm.
three principles is an understanding about how life works,
Mm-hmm.
and then separately you've got different professions or different things. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got therapists,
Mm-hmm.
you've got psychologists, you've got coaches, you've got business people, you've got teachers, all sorts of different things. Now, with the understanding of the three principles, you can become a really good therapist, you can become a really good coach, you can become a really good teacher. And I see them as two separate things. Now, and again, I'd be interested in your view. My view as a teacher is someone who's teaching you something,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's more, giving,
Mm-hmm.
sharing knowledge, sharing something. So, if you want to do this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. That's really, really helpful. Um, and I think with coaching, to me, coaching is more pointing people to their own wisdom. So they want to create something different in their future, different to what they have now. There is some
Mm-hmm.
objective that they want, and a coach is, it, to me, it's less about teaching per se, although there may be some teaching in there, but it's more about helping the client get to that goal that they want to get to, utilizing their own
Yeah.
wisdom.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know, now I think about it, the three principles, uh, understanding, sort of equalized a bit of those things and made the boundaries between teaching and facilitating and coaching or therapy, if you want, a bit more fluent. They sort of came together because the three
Yeah.
principles is such a basic understanding that works for everyone,
Mm.
despite the context they're in. Um, so, but here's another thing that's interesting for me is when we sometimes get stuck in the form of how to do things, how to do our coaching, or how to facilitate the three principles conversation. And for me, I like to be as broad as possible, and I will because my focus is in. It's like Michael Neal says this often. It's like you see the birds sitting in the tree, and they're there. You yourself see them, but your clients or the group of people you're facilitating don't see them directly. So you figure out many different ways to point at the birds until they see them. It's kind of that. So starting from there, the boundaries or the um, the format of thinking how to deliver um, a three principles conversation, or how to do coaching, or whatever, um, become more fluent. Uh, you, you rather find resources in yourself um, to to do what you do in a great way, to make your service much better than when you stick to this. Often coaches come in with this learned format. An ICF coach, for instance, they come in with this learned format of how to coach. And there are things you can do, and there are things you absolutely cannot do as a coach. And for me, and that's just a personal approach. I'm not saying it's gonna work for everyone, because one thing said in the in coaching coaches is that it's just how things work for me, and people have to test it out for themselves if that works. And people have to figure out for them, and that's one other thing I think coaches struggle with, is figuring out for themselves what really works, and giving themselves time to make sure what works for them, especially on a business side. LinkedIn can work for one person, but it doesn't necessarily work for another. Or networking is a great thing for one coach, but will not work necessarily for someone else. So people have to sort of, and that's not like a clean format like that works for everyone all the time. And that comes back to figuring out who you are, what works for you, what gives you energy, what draws energy from you. It's all that personal growth process, basically. Back to grounding, if that makes sense.